All right, let's jump right in. If you're a history buff and you're thinking about a trip to Sri Lanka, you are absolutely going to run into a classic question. And it's a question that, believe it or not, cracks open a story that goes back more than 2,000 years.
You see it everywhere on travel forums, just like this post from Reddit. Polonnaruwa or Anuradhapura. It seems like a pretty simple choice, between two old cities. But this one question, it's the perfect key to unlocking one of the most incredible engineering stories in all of human history.
Now, at first glance, the choice seems pretty straightforward. Travelers will tell you Anuradhapura is just huge. It's sprawling, and it's a living, breathing religious site. Polonnaruwa, on the other hand, well, that's the compact one. It's a beautifully preserved set of ruins that you can easily bike around in a day. But to really get what this choice is about, we've got to dig way, way deeper.
To get to the bottom of this modern-day travel question, we actually have to go back in time, way back to the very beginning of Sri Lankan civilization, and uncover the brilliant idea that made the whole thing possible.
First off, you've got to appreciate the sheer scale of this place. Anuradhapura wasn't just some capital city. Founded way back in the 4th century BCE, it was the center of power on the island for over 1,300 years. That's a reign longer than the entire Roman Empire. But it was built with one massive, almost fatal flaw. Take a look at this map. Anuradhapura is located right in the middle of what's called Sri Lanka's dry zone. Now, this area gets hit with monsoon rains for sure, but it also has to deal with these long, brutal dry spells and super high evaporation. So, here's the billion-dollar question. How on earth do you build a massive, thriving civilization for thousands and thousands of people in a place that's fundamentally running out of water? And the answer they came up with wasn't just clever engineering. It was engineering on a scale that literally defined their entire civilization. They didn't just find water. They sculpted the entire landscape to control it. They did it with this, the wewa. Now, don't just think of this as a simple reservoir or a pond. A wewa is part of a gigantic interconnected system. Imagine thousands of these man-made tanks built in a cascade down natural river valleys so that each one catches the overflow from the one above it. They were capturing and saving every single drop of that precious monsoon rain. And if you want to know just how well this system worked, look at this number. An estimated 10,000 of these ancient tanks are still being used today. Just let that sink in for a second. We're talking about infrastructure built 2 millennia ago that is still working, still supporting entire communities. It's an absolutely staggering legacy of sustainable design. And, if you ever wondered what was important to them, the ancient records tell the whole story. When researchers looked at over 800 ancient inscriptions, they found that water was basically the only thing they were talking about. I mean, look at this breakdown. It's all tanks, canals, and the laws and money behind the irrigation. This wasn't just some public works project. This was the absolute heart of their society. And we can even see when they really hit their stride. This data shows this insane spike in the 2nd century CE. This was their golden age of building. It tells you this wasn't just a bunch of random projects. It was a highly organized, super powerful state throwing immense resources at perfecting its water empire. And right here, you can see the two sides of that genius. On the one hand, you have the sheer, mind-boggling scale of a reservoir like this one. I mean, we're talking about a man-made lake. But then, on the other hand, you have the sophisticated, intricate technology, like this ancient stone sluice, built for incredibly precise water control. It was that combination, massive scale and tiny details, that made the whole thing work for centuries. So what you end up with is a true hydraulic civilization. This massive water network was the engine that powered everything. It made it possible to grow enormous amounts of rice, it supported a huge population, and it gave the kings of Anuradhapura the power and the stability to rule for more than 1,000 years. But the city's identity wasn't just built on water. So let's switch gears from the epic engineering to the spiritual heart of the city. Because to really understand Anuradhapura today, you have to know that its most sacred spot isn't a stone ruin at all. It's a living, breathing tree. The Sri Maha Bodhi is one of the most sacred relics in the entire Buddhist world, and its presence completely changes the whole vibe of this ancient capital. And its story is just, well, it's unbelievable. Let's just walk through this.
The story starts around 500 BC with the original Bodhi tree in India, the actual tree that the Buddhist sat under when he attained enlightenment. Then, in the 3rd century BC, a cutting from that very tree is brought over to Sri Lanka. By 288 BC, it's planted right there in Anuradhapura. And today? Today it stands as the oldest living tree in the world with a verified planting date. Amazing. And this, right here, is the absolute game changer. Just as this quote explains, this isn't some old relic behind a velvet rope. It is a vibrant, active center of pilgrimage. Every single day, people are there, they're worshiping, and it makes the whole ancient city feel less like a museum and more like a living, breathing, sacred place.
Okay, so now that we know all this, the story of the water empire, the story of the living tree, let's circle all the way back to our traveler's question. Polonnaruwa or Anuradhapura? I think the choice is starting to look a lot different now. And honestly, this comment from that original Reddit thread just hits the nail on the head. The real choice isn't about which place is in better shape. It's a choice between two totally different ways of experiencing the past. Think of it like this. Anuradhapura is living history. It's a place of culture and ritual where the buildings have been used and updated for centuries. Polonnaruwa is preserved archaeology, a moment frozen in time, a city left to the jungle and then carefully put back together. So, at the end of the day, there's no wrong answer here. Both of these places tell a crucial part of Sri Lanka's story. One gives you the chance to step into a river of history that has literally never stopped flowing. The other lets you walk through a perfect, silent echo of a world that's long gone. And that leaves us with a bigger question, one that goes way beyond just Sri Lanka, right? When we travel to these incredible ancient places, what are we really looking for? Do we want to be a witness to a story that's still being told, or do we want to stand in awe of a perfect, silent snapshot of what used to be? The answer to that question really defines not just the trip you take, but the kind of traveler you are.